Hello, chess friends. Welcome back to another episode of our YouTube channel. In this video, we're gonna have a look at some chess tactic. Basically, it's gonna be focused on decoy. Now, in the last video, we have looked at pin. Before that, we have looked at clearance and deflection. So I thought let's have a look at decoy. It's a very popular tactic, a very famous one, and it occurs from time to time. Very common as well. So, what is decoy and how is it gonna be useful for us? Well, first understand what's decoy. Decoy basically means you have to drag a piece or you have to force a piece on a square where it is very unpleasant or where that piece can be attacked. For example, you force the king on a square where he might get checkmated. You force the queen on a square where she might be captured. Basically, forcing a piece on an unpleasant square is decoy. It's very much like attraction in a way. You attract the piece and then you give a checkmate or you win material. So, in this video, let's have a look at 5 excellent examples of decoy. All of them are full of sacrifices, great attacking games. So, without any further ado, let's get started. In this position, it's black to play. So, black has to find a very powerful move in order to decoy. In this puzzle, of course, we are going to decoy the king to its deadbed. So, it's black to play. Find the move for black. I think you should find the entire combination, the sequence of moves till the very end of the game. So pause the video and try to find the move for black. Okay, of course, it's a first example, so it has to start with something sparkling. So the first move is, of course, queen into h3. Now that is a queen sacrifice, a beautiful one, in fact. Now let's have a look at what happens if it's not captured. The only other square is king to g1, but then knight to f3 is a checkmate. All the squares are covered. Excellent checkmate. You can see white pieces are totally helpless and spectators over there. So going back, it basically means that white has only one option, and that is to capture the queen. Now you can see the king has been decoyed. It has been forced to come on a square where he doesn't originally wanted to come, and now that he has been over here, it's time we attack him. Knight to e3, check, a very important move. First of all, the bishop gives a check and the knight goes to e3, controlling the g2 square. So basically the king can no longer retreat. King cannot even go to the g3 square thanks to a dark square bishop. Basically it means that the king is dragged even further. He's decoyed and he's brought down. So now the bishop blocks, of course. That's a free bishop. So we're gonna capture it. King to h4. And here comes a very strong idea. Knight f3, again pulling the king down over here. So you can see the bishops are too powerful. They stop the king from retreating, and the knights, they're controlling a huge lot of squares over here, just too strong. The king is again forced to come down the board. King h5, and this is the last move of the game. Simply bishop f7. Every single square is controlled. It's a very beautiful checkmate. It's basically a king hunt, as we call it in chess. So excellent example. So the idea of decoy is basically to force one of the pieces, specifically maybe the king or the queen, on a square where it doesn't want it to go. You can see here, after queen into h3, the king doesn't really want it to capture, but he had no other option. As we know that king g1 results into a mate, so he doesn't really had an option other than capturing the queen in order to prolong the game. But of course, in this position, the king is on a very bad square where it can be a subject to attack, which of course happened. And there was a checkmate. Alright, let's jump on to our second example now. So there you go, this is the second example. It's black to play and win the game. Again, you have to use decoy. Decoy is basically, again, you have to bring the king or the queen on a square where that doesn't want to go. In this particular case, it's of course the king, because all of our pieces are surrounding the king. It has to be the king. So black to play and basically go for a king hunt. That's the hint I'm going to give you. So pause the video and try to find the spectacular combination that black should play here. Okay, I'm pretty sure that most of you have guessed the move. It's very similar to the first one. Again here, all we have to do is drag him out of his comfort zone, and once he's out of his comfort zone, then it's possible to forcefully give a checkmate to him. How is that is done? Queen takes pawn on h2, check. Well, that's a queen sacrifice. It's a very bold queen sacrifice, and it's basically a game of numbers, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces surrounding the king. Only one defender, I would say. That is hardly contributing to the defense. So obviously, it's in a game of numbers, and black is going to be successful with his attack. So queen takes h2. Can we reject the queen f4? Absolutely not, because now queen h1, thanks to the bishop and the knight covering the square, is a checkmate. Also bishop g2 is a checkmate, of course, because the knight covers, whichever you prefer, of course. Going back, here he has to capture the queen, and now you can see the king has been decoyed. He has came on his square. He has dragged down on his square, where we can attack him and finish him up. So thanks to the king on h2, now we can play knight to g4. That is a check. Most of the squares are now covered, so the only square he has to go is king g1. Knight h3. That's a check again. You can see the bishop is the excellent guardian of all the light squares in the position, stops the king from escaping, whereas the knight does the rest of the job. Now that's a check. As I said, there is only one square, all the other squares are controlled. King f1, only square, and now comes knight to h2. This is a very rare occurrence in chess. There are two knights and a bishop giving checkmate, so very interesting mate. Beautiful one, in fact. So this was our second example. Again, the basic theme is you have to bring the king on his square where he doesn't want to go. He's very uncomfortable. If he comes out, if he's exposed, then we can deliver a checkmate, and that's why queen into h2 does the job, attracts the king, and then the king hunt is a great one. So now let's jump to example number 3. Our third example is not as usual as the normal ones, because this time we are black and we do not have a queen. So no chance for a queen sacrifice. So you guys have to give a little bit of more effort this time, because there is no queen sacrifice. So black to play and try to find the entire combination. In fact, there are really beautiful lines in this. So take your time and find all the variations that exist here for black. Black to play and win. Pause the video and try to find the move. Okay, as most of you can already see, the rook on f3 is attacked, and now many of the defensive players would be like, well, we can move our knight over here, try to save our rook, and then try to get our bishops developed. That's a very defensive mindset. You know, when you are attacking, go for the offensive. Directly try for the best attacking lines rather than defending. So rather than offering some protection for the rook, we're gonna let it go. We have to care for the bigger picture, and here we are gonna play pawn move to d5. Now that is a wonderful check. There are several moves here. Let me just show you. Let's start with basically there are two moves: captures and takes. Let's start with captures. This time the thing is the king has been decoyed. It has been attracted and dragged away on his square. But now it's possible for us to play knight here. That's a fork, a royal fork, and we're gonna pick up material. At the end, we are gonna be 3 pieces up. You can see we have 3 pieces versus him having only 2 pieces, something like this. And now there's a very clever idea with bishop d7 or bishop b7, in fact. But even although knight into a3 is also fine. For example, over here we give up the knight, of course. If he captures, then rook to f8, and we are going to pick up. Basically, all we have to do is try to simplify the position. The more simple it gets, the easier it is for black to win. So at the end, it's going to be black who is going to be victorious because of his extra piece. Won't go in much detail over there, but let's have a look at other variations. d5. Now the other variation is, of course, not giving up the queen so easily, but capturing on d5. Now what should be done? In fact, black again does not care about his rook, simply captures back with a pawn. Now he has again 2 options. To take the rook would mean that you can play knight d4, pick up the queen with an extra piece, and a winning endgame for black, not at all trouble. Another option is for the king to capture on d5. This is where the real beauty starts. Our knight is hanging. What should we play in this position? Well, you will be surprised, as black in this position did not even try to, just as we did not try to defend the rook, we don't try to defend the knight. In fact, bishop e6 is the strongest move over here. What's the point? Well, can you capture the bishop? Definitely not, because of knight d4. Family fork, royal fork, pardon me, not a family fork. What happens if this is captured? This time you have a skewer over here, and the queen will be gone. In fact, we will be too much better over here after captures. This is just too good. We have 2 rooks. Pardon me. We have 2 rooks, and this is going to be more or less winning. You can grab more pieces. After you grab the h2 pawn, I think we have a winning position, a winning endgame. So of course not that. What else can be played in this position? Now the option is king to e4. And this is where again it's very beautiful. You don't need to defend the rook at all. Here you have to play bishop f5. Now isn't that wonderful? Look at this. This is the skewer. It's basically a skewer. If you take the rook, I'm gonna capture the queen. Or even better, I would first go for knight check. I'm gonna take that, attack your rook. Once your rook moves, rook f8. Again, I'm up a piece. This guy hangs. I can always come back whenever I want. This is a very good position for black. Going back, is there any other option for him to play? He can again come back to d5, but then bishop takes c2. Easy peasy, does the job. This is going to be a totally winning position. In fact, here you can also try knight over here first and then take it. It all depends on your choice. But the entire point is, here in this position you have to play d5, force the king to move either here, in which he's decoyed, he's dragged away, and then this move works, or you have to attract the king forward, after which two of our pieces will be sacrificed, none can be captured. That's the point. This is the decoy. Alright, let's go to our fourth example, I think so. Let's go to our fourth example. Here comes the fourth example on your demand. This is a really excellent one. White to play and win the game. Again, it's all about decoy. It's all about attracting the piece on a particular square. So go ahead, pause the video, try to find the spectacular winning move for white. Again, it's very similar. It's all about the king safety and maybe the queen here as well. So here comes the first move. Rook takes on e7. Basically, you make an excellent exchange sacrifice, and you're going to keep in mind that the entire point of this is black's pieces are vulnerable and they are kind of loosely hanging. What do I mean by that? For example, of course, king takes is the better capture. If you capture with a queen, then there's a lot of problem because that suddenly opens up this diagonal, and you can see we're going to win much more material here. So takes, and here we can exchange the queens. Of course, we can always exchange queens, or we can play queen e6. In both cases, we have an extra knight, which is going to help us to win the game. He just have an extra piece versus a knight, so that's not a big deal. White is absolutely winning. Going back, this will win a rook. So of course he has to capture with the king. But then what's the thing? How do you keep attacking? In fact, the thing is, rook e1 check. There are two options if the king goes back. Of course, king going over here, never an issue because you simply take the queen. So king goes here. Now knight e6, king comes here, and now more or less you go directly for the queen. Here again, knight takes is also possible, but queen takes, of course, results into a strong mate idea. After a lot of checks, we're gonna capture more and more material. We're gonna invade the position, start capturing pawns, and basically, in the end, it's white who's gonna get the full point. So coming back, of course, king d8 not totally necessary. He can also come out with king d6. Now what's the point? You're gonna play check. If the king goes here, rook c1 checkmate. Everything is perfectly covered. Of course, he can play rook c5. In that case, this c5 square will be taken, and now you can go back, queen f4 check here, and rook e6 is the killer move. If the queen takes, the knight can always capture back. The back rank is taken care of. Our queen always guards it. And next move, we can make a luft with h3 or g3, and we're totally fine. And if he tries to run away over here, this is even more trouble because a4, b4, you pick up more and more material. That is a check from the queen. Basically, the attack will go on and on and on, and it's not going to stop. So this was the excellent chess tactic which I wanted to show you over here in the fourth example. Rook takes on e7, decoying one of the pieces. Either you get the queen on an unpleasant square, which leaves the rook on c8 hanging, or you force the king to capture, in which case again the king is kind of very much exposed in the center and can be attacked multiple times, as you see over here. So last example now, and last has gonna be a really really the best one. So best in the end. So here is the last example, and this is really the best one of all of them. I really like this. So white to play and decoy one of the pieces. It's basically like always. Most probably in a decoy, it's mostly about the king. So decoy the king, dragging him out of his hole, and finish the game. Okay, I think the amount of hints I give before solving the puzzle is more or less enough for you guys to spot the move. Queen takes on c6. This is the brilliant move. You sacrifice the queen. You're gonna only have two pieces, two minor pieces, but still they are more than enough. In fact, our pawns are also gonna help. How does this work? Let us look at if what happens if this is rejected. If king b8 or king a7, in both cases, knight just moves. Knight is gonna come over here. There is a strong battery and it's gonna be a win. For example, any silly move like this, just a check. King has to move either here, in which case knight takes pawn is possible, or over here, in which case a direct checkmate is possible. In both cases, black is the one who's white is the one who's totally in charge and winning the game. So of course, let's have a look at the more funnier variation, better variation. King takes. What happens if the queen is exchanged? What is the move you're gonna play? Well, it turns out that white still has to be very alert. He can't simply go something like knight e4. The reason is the king can step back and he's going to be safe, and that we might regret. Of course, we can play bishop h3 over there, but that is not enough because after move something like this or something like this, you can take, but he can capture back. He'll have an exchange. Not good enough. The best move is knight e5. It's a double discovered check. The knight controls the d7 square, the super important square. The king basically cannot go back from here or here or here or here. The only square possible is to come forward. Now comes the move knight to d3. The knight's job on e5 was done, so he comes back, gives a check. So many squares are controlled thanks to the bishop and the pawns, and the knight controls the rest of the squares, gives a check. The king has to again come down to only square possible. King d4, and here comes a really tough move to calculate. King to d2. You know, after you sacrifice the queen, it's very difficult to calculate such moves. In fact, the idea is simple. You want to play c3 with a checkmate. The king has absolutely no squares, you can see. It's absolutely trapped, no squares at all. And in fact, no matter what you do over here, any move, c3 is gonna come, and that will be a checkmate. A wonderful checkmate with only two pieces and a pawn. Of course, the king is also involved. So, gonna give the credit to all these pieces. But of course, the star move was the queen sacrificing her life for this beautiful combination, decoying the king out, bringing the king out. It's like attraction. You attract the king in a magnetic way, and after that, it was more or less the end of the game. So that were all the puzzles for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I really love these puzzles. It's really fun to play this kind of a tactic. So until next time, see you guys.